look better. This is the world we live in, but I believe we're supposed to be living in a world where we're made to be compassionate. And now I know that this weekend we're all making a great start. We're doing the 40-hour famine. But I believe that compassion is more than just one weekend's worth of events. I believe that compassion is more than just giving to the poor, whether it's once or for regularly. I believe that compassion is more than just an emotion. Oh, I feel bad for those people, so I do something. I believe compassion is more than just simple actions. I believe that compassion is a lifestyle. And I believe that we're called to dream and live compassionate lifestyles. And so tonight, the first thing I want to stop and do is look at the story from the New Testament book in the Bible, Matthew. And there's this account in Matthew where Jesus, he meets and heals this man who's got leprosy. And the way the account goes is Jesus walking through the streets, and he's got this crowd following around with him. And this man with leprosy calls out, "Jesus, if you're willing, please heal me." And Jesus stops, even though there's a crowd all around him. One person's got his attention. He says, "I am willing." And then Jesus reaches out, he touches the man on the head, and he says, "Be healed." And then he sends the man off to do a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, I think it's really easy when we hear this story, go, wow, cool, so Jesus is healing people. I wonder what that's like. Or, hey, what would happen if I could heal people? And so we sort of run through these different ideas. And I believe if we start getting distracted by the healing part, we're missing the point sometimes. And if you want to know more about healing, just a side note, definitely feel free to speak to the leaders. But tonight, that's not what I want us to focus on. I want us to focus on the man's question and Jesus' response. So the man, the leper, comes up to Jesus. He doesn't say, "Jesus, can you heal me?" I believe in my mind, at least as I translate the story, that the man already understands that Jesus can heal him. That Jesus is God and he's got the power to do this. So that the man asks Jesus, "Jesus, are you willing to heal me?" And there's a difference. He says, "Are you willing to heal me?" There's no doubt about whether it can be done, just a doubt about whether Jesus is willing. And Jesus responds by compassionately saying, "I am willing." You see, the thing is, as we walk around today, often we're confronted with situations which require us to respond with compassion. And the question isn't, hey, can I be compassionate? Can I love this person? Can I say something nice? Can I actually stick up for the person being teased? The question is not whether you can or cannot do that. You definitely can. The question is always, are you willing? Are you willing to show compassion? And so when I look at this story, I see Jesus and he's walking along, and the question is not, can you heal? It's whether he's willing to. And the answer is, yes, Jesus was willing to. And the question to you guys is, are you willing to show compassion? I believe we're called to dream and live compassionate lifestyles. And I believe that this begins with a willingness to act. Hey, the second thing that I want us to pick out from this story where Jesus walks out is how he responds in his actions. Jesus doesn't just go, "Yeah, be healed, I'm God," and all of a sudden there's like fireworks in the sky and the guy goes down to school. It doesn't work like that. Jesus reaches out and he puts his hand on the leper's head and he says, "I am willing," and he says, "Be healed." He touches the leper on the head. Now, I don't know this for sure, so feel free to debate or argue against me, but in my mind, before we go any further, we need to understand the culture of lepers. This part I do know for sure. So lepers today, still in some parts of the world, and definitely in the biblical context, so when this account was written, they were viewed as being social outcasts. They weren't allowed to live in the city centres. They weren't allowed to commune and bathe in the communal places. The words will eventually come out. They weren't allowed to walk the streets without yelling out, "Unclean coming." So that people heard the leper walking along, they knew to get out the way. See, lepers, their skin was disfigured, their body was disformed. People did not go anywhere near them. And so Jesus, he says to him, "Are you willing to heal me?" Jesus says, "Yes, I'm willing." And then he reaches out and he touches the leper. And this is the part that I want you guys to grab hold of, and this is just what I think, so again, debate against this. I wonder when the last time that leper was actually touched by a human being. I wonder if that leper had been touched or had any physical human contact since they were just a little kid. Since before they were disfigured, before anyone actually knew what was wrong with them. And so in Jesus' response, he's saying, not only am I willing to do something, I'm willing to act in a way that is totally outrageous. I'm willing to act in a way that stands out. I'm willing to act in a way that is just not culturally acceptable, in a way that is different in this world. And so Jesus reaches out and he touches this person. He says, "I'm willing," and he heals him. I believe that we're called to dream and live compassionate lifestyles. I believe that this begins with a willingness to act. Tonight's step one for many of us. I believe too that we need to act in ways that stand out. And that often compassion will look very, very different from what's going on around us with everyone else. Now, I realize that many of you are probably sitting there thinking, well, hey, blow me down. There's no lepers in my family. I'm pretty sure there's no lepers at Carey Baptist College or whatever school you go to. So how on earth am I supposed to show compassion if that's the case? I'm pretty sure you're thinking that, last time I saw a leper or someone who needed something, I wasn't able to say, hey, you're healed and away you go. That sometimes isn't the way it works for many of us, and that's totally cool. But I do believe we have options and opportunities all around us at school to show compassion, to be willing and to act upon it. Perhaps just think back to the last time you were sitting down and you saw someone all alone. Were they looking happy or sad? How did you respond if they looked sad? Hey, in the Bible there's another book in the New Testament written by a guy named Luke. And in Luke chapter 19, Jesus is again walking. This time he's entering into a city called Jericho. Everyone say Jericho with me. Jericho. Yeah, we're not doing it together, so maybe just repeat after me. Jericho. Jericho. You know what? I think this front little patch there, they're good, but the rest of you guys, I think you're kind of sleeping. So Jericho. Jericho. Yeah, I think we got the idea. So they're in Jericho, right? And Jesus is walking through the streets of Jericho, and again, his presence has resulted in a large crowd gathering around him. So he's trying to walk through the streets, but all of a sudden, a tax collector, a guy by the name of Zacchaeus, realizes, hey, that Jesus is walking through here, and I want to meet this man. I want to see this man. But Zacchaeus, he's like short. He's like yay high. And so he's like, well, I can't see anything through this crowd. So Zacchaeus, really wanting to get close and have a look at Jesus, decides that the best thing for me to do would be to climb up into a tree so I can look down and view Jesus. So Jesus is walking along, walking. There's people all around. All of a sudden he gets to this tree and he's like, there's a man up in this tree. That's kind of weird. So he calls up and says, Zacchaeus, don't ask me how he knows his name. He says, Zacchaeus, come down. I want you to have me around for dinner. Now that'd be kind of cool. I wish I could walk down the streets and be like, hey, Jasmine, I want dinner. Have me around, please. Thank you very much. It doesn't normally work like that, but Jesus is like, hey, I want to come around to your place for dinner. And Zacchaeus jumps down out of the tree. He's like, sure, sounds awesome. Now there's a massive crowd around and they're like, wait a second. This Zacchaeus character, he's not exactly a nice person. He's a tax collector. We don't like him. What on earth is Jesus doing going to dinner with a tax collector? This person is robbing us. This person is mean to us. And Zacchaeus, for whatever reason, suddenly turns to the crowd and yells out and says, Lord, look, I will give half of my possessions away to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out there, I'll pay them back 4 times over. And then Jesus responds, he says, today, salvation has come to this household because this man is also a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost. So that's the story of Zacchaeus, and I realize a bunch of you guys are thinking, cool, not too sure how this has got anything to do with compassion, willingness, and acting in my school. So let's just quickly take a little English exercise. How many characters would you say there are in this story? What do you guys reckon?
3.
I got 3. Alright, I'm going to say 3 is the correct answer. The first character is obviously Jesus, the second character is obviously Zacchaeus, and the third character is the plural character in the crowd. And so first when we look into Zacchaeus, he's a tax collector, which is an official Roman position. He's been given authority and power by the Roman government to collect money and to then give that money to the Roman government in any way, shape or form he sees fit. And all he has to do is get the right amount to the Roman government. If he collects extra, he doesn't have to give it away. He can keep it for himself. All he's required to do is get their tax into the Roman treasury. And so Zacchaeus, he would be in the eyes of the Roman law, a legal, law-abiding citizen. He does always what is right in the eyes of the Roman law. And so Zacchaeus, he's a really wealthy person. But living in a Jewish society, people don't like him. And so he's really rich, but he's really unpopular. The last thing you want to or need to know in the story is that Zacchaeus, he wants to see Jesus. And then we have our second character, Jesus. So he's walking along, and he stops underneath this tree, and he sees Zacchaeus, and he knows that, hey, this man is hated. This man is unliked. But you know what? This man wants to see me. And so Jesus stops, and he responds in compassion. He says, hey, I'd like a free feed. Please have me around to your place. You see, for Jesus, it didn't matter whether Zacchaeus was a cheat or a liar. It didn't matter whether Zacchaeus was short or that he worked for the Roman government that oppressed his people. It didn't matter what Zacchaeus was like. All that mattered was that